Hey guys, back for part two of my Q&A. Um, so yeah, now to the next question. From Variety Guy, do you like tits? Of course. What guy doesn't like a nice pair of tits? Um, yeah, I mean that's pretty much all I have to say about that. Who doesn't like tits? Um, and do you like any specific indie wrestling company? It's a good question. I've not really. I mean, it's not that I'm not into indies. It's just I'm not really like I don't really know much about them. I mean, I'm fascinated by ROH. I've heard about some of the guys they have, and I've seen some clips of some of the matches they've had. And I know Bryan Danielson has had so many great. I've heard of the great matches he had while he was there, and I mean ROH does interest me. I'd like to get into it. I just I don't know. Just some. I mean, I do. I would like to get into it. I don't know. I just think it'd take me some time to actually, get into it like full on. Like become invested in it, if you will. Because I'm not gonna sit here and say, I know all these guys on the ROH roster. I don't. Um, but I mean, those guys definitely I've heard put on amazing matches, and uh, if I could, I would definitely start to get into it. But other than that, I'm not really, WWE is, I've watched my whole life, and it's pretty much the only company I follow. Um, like I said, I'll watch Impact every now and then if there's nothing else on. And, WCW, I watched them back in the day too. And just when they went out of business, it was strictly WWE or WWF, then WWE. So, but I would like to get into ROH you know, if I got the chance. So yeah. And then Marco Rubio, 2012. What is your first memory of wrestling? That's a good question. Uh, Man, to be honest, the first thing I remember, my first memory of wrestling was when I was, oh man, I think it was I watched Raw one night with my dad in like 90 six or I think it was 1997. I remember I went down to my den with my dad one night and watched Raw, and Raw's War, and I just remember it strictly. It was some segment with Brian Pillman. He was cutting some promo or something. I remember it, and the dude was nuts. But I just remember like watching it and just like, and then I think he had a match actually too. So, and I forget who it was against. Sorry, I can't remember that. It was like 8 at the time, 7 or 8. But I remember just watching it, and I was like, I just got so like drawn into it, like the crowd and just everything, the how cool his stage looked and everything, and just how his character alone. I was just like, wow, this is. I was like, this is something I could. I was just thinking to myself, like I could, something I could really get into, start watching, and I remember after that promo, I would just go to every Monday night after I did my homework and stuff. I'd go down to the den with my dad and watch Raw until I had to go to bed. I could only watch a little bit. I remember because it was on at 9. But uh, that's really when I started getting into wrestling. It was like 1997, I believe. So it was just it was awesome. That was my first memory watching Brian Pillman cut a promo. So that was a good question. What match? And these are all the rest of these questions are from Marco Rubio. What match was the most you remember? I'm assuming you meant what match do I remember the most, like clearly. Um, I mean, I've watched so many matches. I know like the clearest. I guess maybe um, what match do I oh, okay. What match do you remember the most? Like, what match I guess stood out to me? I'm assuming that's what you meant, Marco. Wow. Well, obviously, the last two WrestleMania matches with Shawn Michaels and Undertaker have been amazing, but match that stood out to me the most, I'm gonna have to say Stone Cold versus The Rock at WrestleMania 17 and the Astrodome in Houston, Texas, 2001. I mean, I remember watching that and just it stood out to me the most because of the finish with Stone Cold, turning heel and just unloading on The Rock with a steel chair and basically aligning himself the uh, with Satan himself, Vince McMahon. After all those years of watching Austin just beat the hell out of Vince and make his life hell, and now he's siding with him and he's heel. It's like I was like, what the? I was just like, what? Like, what is going on? This can't be happening. But that match definitely stands out to me the most. Like one of the most memorable moments. Probably the best WrestleMania of all time. So that match definitely stood out to me the most. Um, and next question: besides SmackDown vs. Raw, what is your favorite video game? Well, that is one of my favorite video games. I actually haven't played it in a little while, to be honest. But my favorite video game's got to be Madden. I mean, I'm a sports guy. I love, I used to play NBA Live all the time, but now since 2K is kind of taking over basketball, NBA 2K11, by the way, is probably my current favorite. With Michael Jordan on the cover, but Madden's definitely my favorite. I mean, I don't really like some of the improvements they made over the last few years. In my opinion, the best Madden was 2005 with Ray Lewis on the cover for PS2, and that was also the year the game the hit stick got introduced, just fucking awesome. And I thought that was one of the best Maddens, but I'd say Madden and Call of Duty too. Even though I'm pissed I never got Black Ops. I played it a couple times. It's pretty awesome, but I loved Modern Warfare 2 and first Modern Warfare, so probably say Madden and Call of Duty are my favorite video games. Um, but if you want to talk like old school, when I had N64, WrestleMania 2000 and No Mercy were and Bond GoldenEye obviously were my favorite video games ever, hands down, without a doubt. I mean, WrestleMania 2000 was awesome, and No Mercy. There were just so many characters. Like I loved just the controls were simple, storylines were cool, and it was just. I mean, obviously the graphics sucked, but back then it was just all about how cool the games were. It was fucking awesome. You could use so many weapons. I remember you could go through the crowd, pick out like a stop sign, like half of a table, shot like a trash can. My God, they had so like street signs, just so many things, and you could like just do moves onto like a pedigree someone onto a stop sign and shit like that. It was just awesome. I loved it. I loved those games so much. Brings back some great memories. And GoldenEye, and one of the best video games in history, in my opinion. Uh, Golden Gun. Had some great memories playing those with my friends back in the day when we were younger. So those are probably my favorite games. Um, WrestleMania 2000, No Mercy, GoldenEye, and right now, currently I have PS3. So SmackDown vs. Raw, Madden, and Call of Duty. And next question: besides the big two, Rock and Austin, who is your favorite wrestler? Well, I'm assuming you mean all time. Well, currently my favorite wrestler is Randy Orton, as you can probably tell on my channel. But all besides those two, because those are my top two, I have to say Triple H. No, those three are my absolute favorites of all time. I think three of the best to do it. But Triple H, besides Rock and Austin, is my other favorite. I mean, I hated him so much when he was a heel all those years. Like I legitimately hated him, and that's what heels make you do. Like they make you hate them and want to beat the crap out of them. I remember just watching Raw and the stuff he'd do would just make me so pissed. uh, you know, when he was with Stephanie and just the whole like McMahon Helmsley regime, how they beat the hell out of Rock and stuff, and Austin, and when Triple H ran over Austin, like Survivor Series, when basically they found out Rikishi was like, I ran over, uh, I ran over Stone Cold Steve Austin. I did it for The Rock, and Triple H was the driver apparently, or the one who, you know, schemed the whole thing. So that, and when Austin, dropped Triple H in that car at Survivor Series 90, was it Survivor Series 99? I think, yeah. That I was just like, yeah, like I was so into it because I hated Triple H. I was like, yeah. I was like, that finally, that's you get yours. Like I was just so into it. You know what I mean? He was the type of heel where you literally hated him, and like in his Evolution days, I despised him too. He was an asshole, but that's why he's one of the best heels ever, in my opinion. Um, so yeah, Triple H is definitely, besides Rock and Austin, Triple H is definitely my favorite wrestler. And last question: have you been to a live WWE event? Have you been to a live WWE event? If so, what show was it? Did you like it? I've been to a few actually. The first one I went to was back in 2003. It was like this super show in Hartford, Connecticut, I believe. And I remember the main event was Kevin Nash versus Triple H in a street fight for the world title, which is pretty cool. I saw Scott Steiner that show. Um, it was like Scott Steiner versus Test, R.I.P. Rest in peace. And yeah, that was a pretty cool show. That was my first one I went to. Then I went to a SmackDown in 2005, where I remember the main event was Christian versus Rey Mysterio. Christian had ran the Peep Show, but I also remember that because I was lucky enough to see Eddie Guerrero too. That was during the storyline in Hoosier. He came out with the shirt Hoosier Poppy. It was the storyline between him and Ray. He and Ray, for the custody of Ray's son Dominic. Ray, I remember Eddie came out while Christian had Ray on his Peep Show, and Eddie came out with like a lawyer or whatever, and read Ray's the legal rights or whatever. And Eddie was just he was great, great heel at that time, and I was I'm still thankful I was lucky to see him before he passed away later that year. Miss Eddie, rest in peace, Latino Heat. One of the best to ever do it, in my opinion. So yeah, and I also let's see, I went to Armageddon 2005, Providence, Rhode Island. I remember that the main event was Undertaker versus Randy Orton in Hell in a Cell. Great match. It was awesome. Uh, it was really good Hell in a Cell. The cell looked really small for some reason compared to how big they are now. But it was a good match. Taker won, obviously. He tombstoned Cowboy Bob Orton, and then he tombstoned Randy to win. Um, some good. Orton was busted open, I'm pretty sure, and his dad got busted open too during the match. It was good stuff. And I remember it's also Batista and Rey Mysterio versus Kane and Big Show, and Kane and Big Show won that. I remember. Uh, Really good stuff. And then there was also like a segment with JBL and Matt Hardy. I remember. Um, that was a good pay per view. I enjoyed that. Just being at a live event, especially when their pay per views are Raw or SmackDown when they're on TV. It's awesome because the pyro and stuff, just everything's so cool. Like live, you feel the electricity, like you get an adrenaline rush. Um, so yeah, that was I love that pay per view. And the last one I went to, most recent one I went to the last ever Backlash 2009. I went with a friend of mine. It was again at the Dunkin' Donuts Center in Providence. That, in my opinion, was one of the best pay-per-views of 2009. I thought it was awesome. Orton won the title, that WWE title that night. It was him and Legacy, DiBiase and Rhodes versus Triple H, Batista, and Shane McMahon in like a six-man tag. And whoever got pinned, if Triple H pinned anyone on Orton's team, he'd retain the title, and vice versa. If Orton pinned anyone on Tripp's team, he'd win the title. Remember, he RKO'd Triple H. Ref counted to two, but the bell rang anyway, so everyone was kind of confused. But then he punted Triple H, won the title. The place went nuts. Christian won the ECW title from Jack Swagger that night in a great match. And then Edge won the world title in a last man standing match against Cena, thanks to Big Show choke slamming him through a spotlight. Um, that was just. I mean, it was a great night. Three champions finally who were finally deserving. The crowd was hot all night. Orton got a huge pop when he won the title, and same with Edge and Christian. And then they had the Edge and Christian, segment backstage. I also got to see Chris Jericho versus Ricky Steamboat that night, which is pretty awesome. That was a good match. Steamboat still had it, man. But that was a really great pay per view. We were really close to the stage. Just great seats. It was a lot of fun. Um, yeah, those are the events I've been to. Backlash is definitely my favorite. And that's it for my Q&A, guys. I thank you to everyone who sent in their questions. I appreciate it. And I'm gonna do my Raw review in a little bit also as well. So stick around for that. And yeah, thanks for the Q&A, guys. I'll let you know when I'm gonna do my second Q&A. So yeah, stick around for my Raw preview. Peace.